The last 2 weeks, as is only appropriate, there's been a lot of energy around what's going on in Israel, the war, violence, the conflict, the missiles, bomb shelters, the response. And we've all been thinking about Israel. But in the wake, thank God, of the ceasefire and the fact that it's holding. And we heard from Jordana and Eliana's family in Ramot Sharon and in Haifa, and they were a sight for sore eyes, that they're walking the streets, proud and unafraid. In light of that, I wanted to change the tone from the energy of war to a very different kind of energy this morning. I want to talk about a kiss. This is a kiss that many of us will give. This is a kiss that many of us will receive. And this is a consequential kiss. When you give this kiss, it changes the trajectory and the nature of your days and the days of the person to whom you give this kiss. And as often as we give this kiss, and as consequential as it is, we never actually talk about this kiss. So I want to do it today. And the reason I want to do it today is because the address for this kiss was the book that we just read this week on Shavuot, the book of Ruth. Now you remember the basic outlines of the story. Naomi and her husband Elimelech and their sons Machlon and Kilion are dealing with famine in Judah. There's nothing to eat. They're starving. And so they leave Judah and they go to the neighboring country of Moab. There they can find food. There they can build a new life. And in fact, Machlon and Kilion, the sons, find Moabite women to marry. They marry Orpah and they marry Ruth. But their time in Moab turns out to be most unhappy. The husband, the father, Elimelech, dies. Both sons, Machlon and Kilion, die. And now Naomi, the matriarch of the family, is left without her husband. She's left without her 2 sons. She's left with her 2 now widowed daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth. And she says to her daughters-in-law, she says, listen, I really dreamed of being the grandmother of your children. But alas, that's not in the cards. My sons, your husbands, have died. I have no more sons for you. There's no way I can become the grandmother of your children. And you're entitled to your own happiness. You're entitled to live your own life. You're entitled to find a husband and to bring children into the world and to raise a family. So listen, dear daughters-in-law, I am going back to Judah, from whence I came, my people, my land. I'm going to try as best I can to rebuild a life there. But I want you, Orpah and Ruth, to stay in Moab with your people. Find a husband, build a home, bring children into the world, and live a life, your own life that makes you happy. Well, what happens next is ironic. Ruth famously disregards what her mother-in-law says. She does not pay heed to what her mother-in-law says. Ruth says to her mother-in-law Naomi, no. Where you go, I go. Where you lodge, I lodge. Your people are my people. Your God is my God. My life is going to be about you. And the rest of the story we know, it's familiar. Naomi and Ruth go to Judah, and there Ruth meets Boaz, and she ends up marrying Boaz, and she has children and descendants, and the last descendant mentioned, the last word in the book of Ruth, is David, 10 generations later. And so what you really have is Ruth as an example of somebody who says, I totally love you. I'm going to build my life around you. And that kind of steadfastness and that kind of focus and that kind of faithfulness is so richly rewarded that literally the King of the Jews, literally the Mashiach, literally the Messiah, comes from that kind of love. And that's why Ruth gets all the press. And that's why Ruth gets all the energy. But there's another move, and there's another daughter-in-law. What does Orpah do? Well, Orpah actually listens to her mother-in-law. Orpah listens to Naomi. Naomi says, Orpah, stay in Moab and rebuild your life there. And that is what Orpah does. But first, Orpah gives her a kiss. This is Orpah's kiss. And Orpah gives Naomi a kiss, as if to say, Naomi, I totally love you. I love you. But you're right. My life cannot be about you. My life has to be about me. And you're right. Your life is going to take you there. My life is going to take me here. And you're right. You're going to rebuild there. And I'm going to rebuild here. So here's a kiss. Goodbye. Now, Orpah's kiss gets no press. Orpah is never mentioned again after this kiss in the book of Ruth. She's never mentioned again in the Hebrew Bible. Whoever talks about Orpah. But I want to talk about Orpah because it seems to me that Ruth and Orpah embody two very different kinds of love. Ruth's love is the love of, I'm going to make my life around you. And that's beautiful. And that's admirable. So admirable, we say the Mashiach, the Messiah, comes from that kind of love. But Ruth's kind of love imposes real limitations. If you're going to build your life around somebody else, that might impose limitations on the city that you get to live in. Maybe you don't get to move to Austin, Texas, which is so cool. Maybe you don't get to go take a high-tech startup job in the Bay Area. Maybe you don't get to go to some capital in Europe. Maybe you don't get to pursue that professional opportunity. Maybe you need to stay close to home. If you're going to do the Ruth move, that means that when our beloved parents get old and frail, and they need time, and they need love, and they need energy, and they need it every day, that means you're going to solve for that by not going to Austin and not going to San Francisco, but staying with them and being there. That's Ruth, and that's beautiful. It's just often uncommon. The much more common move is Orpah, which is love you, deeply connected to you. I'm going to FaceTime you. And as you get older, and as you need more care, I'm going to FaceTime you 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day. Click in, we'll click out, we'll tune in, we'll tune out. But you're in Judah and I'm in Moab. You're there and I'm here, living my own life. That's Orpah's kiss. And Orpah's kiss has a huge blessing and benefit and upside. Orpah's kiss means I get to live my life. I get to thrive where I want to thrive, do what I want to do, build my community, build my life on my terms. What a blessing. And remember, Naomi wants that for Orpah. Our parents very often want that for us. But it comes with a considerable cost that's just there. It's in the system. It's a cost, and it's painful, which is we're not there day to day near as much as our loved ones or as we would like. Now, I've been thinking a lot about Orpah's kiss because the drama and the energy in my family right now, my own family, is all around Orpah's kiss. I'm living it. So my father-in-law tells this story. It's a story from almost 70 years ago. He's 93. So this is a story when he was, 25, 26 years old. My father-in-law, Arnold Goodman, grows up in New York. He lives his entire life in New York. He marries Ray Parnas, who grows up her whole life in New York. Both get educated in New York. He gets ordained at the Jewish Theological Seminary in New York. His mother is a widow, and he is an only child. He is her star, her moon, her reason for being. And he gets ordained. He's 25, 26 years old. The question is, where's he going to take his first pulpit? So there are Jews in New York, and there are synagogues in New York. And he could have taken a pulpit in New York. But he felt, his wife, my mother-in-law, felt, let's get out of New York. Maybe we'll have a different kind of life, a richer kind of rabbinate, a richer kind of life elsewhere. And so they choose to move to Chicago. And the thing that he will always remember, the moment that defined his life, was his Orpah's kiss. On this particular morning, they were moving from New York to Chicago for the first time, getting out of New York. And he was sleeping, and my mother-in-law was sleeping in his mother's apartment in Williamsburg. And they get up at 4 a.m., and they're just so excited. Their bags are packed, they're ready to go. The luggage is in the car, they're ready to go. They have their maps out. This is pre-GPS, they're ready to go. And they get up at 4 o'clock thinking they'll get out of the apartment, get into their car, and start their new chapter together. But when they get up, alas, his mother is in the kitchen. And she's already cooked up a full-on breakfast. There's fresh bagels, there's cream cheese plain, cream cheese with chives, hard-boiled eggs, white fish salad, chalava, fresh fruit, fresh squeezed orange juice, and fresh coffee. And she says, maybe you want to eat a little bit before you head up the road. And they eat this breakfast at 4 in the morning, and then he gives her Orpah's kiss. And as he does so, he knows that he is likely never going to live in the same city as his mother again. And the plus of that was he and my mother-in-law had a beautiful life and beautiful rabbinate in not New York, in Chicago, in Minneapolis, where Shira was raised, in Atlanta. They loved their life there. And the downside of Orpah's kiss, he didn't see his mother and she didn't see him near as much as they would have liked. Now roll the film forward. My father-in-law is now 93. He's a widower living in Jerusalem. And in March, he falls, breaks his hip, has surgery. And we're with the Zoom, and we're with the FaceTime, and we're FaceTiming 5 times a day. But you all know what I know, FaceTiming is not the same as being there. And so literally the minute that we're both fully vaccinated, the day of the 14th day after Shira's second shot, we are on a flight to Israel, and we're just with him, and it's so meaningful to be with him where he is at now. And there the drama of Ruth and Orpah plays out. My father-in-law has a Ruth. His Ruth is Ari and Siparit. They're his son and daughter-in-law. They live 1 block away. Their life is about him. They're with him hours every day. And Shira and I, we're Orpah. We flew in from Boston, spent a week there, but wanted to get back here for Shavuot. And we gave our father Orpah's kiss. And like Naomi, he wanted us to get back to the land that we live in and do the work that we do. And it also meant that we wouldn't see him and he wouldn't see us near as much as either of us would have liked. As a young man, he gave his mother Orpah's kiss. As an older man, he received Orpah's kiss from his daughter and me, complexity that just is, love, true love, deep love, abiding love, comes in so many forms. Shabbat Shalom.